Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Talking Dirty, and we got new scenery here. We got fast shafts. We got mufflers. You're not going to do any shotgun drinking out of that deal like that one video on Facebook, hopefully.
Yeah.
So Jack Sartain's here.
How y'all doing?
With the 47 hat on, and what's up with these cut-off sleeves, man? That went out, a long time ago. I mean,
man,
you going to mow some yards or something?
Exactly.
That's the Ronnie Sigman special right
that's
there.
That's it. The Ronnie Sigman special. Unfortunately, today we laid to rest a racing icon and one of my heroes and longtime friends, Ronnie Sigman. And so I'm wearing this shirt as a tribute to him. He either had a pearl snap shirt on or he had a sleeveless shirt on. So, just a little tribute to him. I wore one last Saturday to the races, and I don't know. I think I may start wearing them like he did for a little while, for the rest of the year or something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I definitely, there with my involvement with some of the local tracks, shutting down tracks, that it's either you or him was locking the gate, so definitely a sad issue there. You went to the viewing, correct?
Yeah, I went to the viewing on Tuesday night. I couldn't make it there today, but man, that place was packed.
For sure.
It really showed you how many people he touched and people he knew. I mean, you couldn't get another car in the parking lot, and they were lined up a mile down the service road.
Yeah, definitely. I think the one quote you could always get from him was "son."
Oh,
he always
absolutely.
said, son.
Yeah.
It was always funny. So.
How's it going, son?
Right.
That's what he'd say every time he saw me.
Definitely. So.
Always had a smile on his face. Just a good, positive guy to be around.
We need more people like that.
For sure. And he was a damn good race car driver and really clean. He was one of those guys that you enjoyed racing because he wouldn't give you an inch, but he would put himself in the wall before he drove over you. He just wasn't going to run over you.
Right.
Yeah, he was one of the best for sure.
I've seen it where he's, accidentally runs someone over and then pulls off the track.
For sure.
And just DQs himself from the race.
Right.
And of course he was involved there with Troutman at RPM running that scene there for a while. Kind of built RPM up there in those few years that they were partnered off in there with it. So
I think that was some of the best years that RPM was open.
Yep.
It was when Troutman owned it. For sure.
Yeah, them guys worked really hard. I know that at that time I talked to Jason a lot, and he, you don't see promoters reach out to racers, but I know at that time he would actually physically pick up the phone and call guys every week and invite them to their local show. And Jason understood what it took and what it needed to happen in order to make a track successful. And a lot of these promoters work hard. I'm not saying that they don't, but he understood the people side of it too,
Right.
which is just as important. And Ronnie was a good people person, and so to have him, kind of ramrod everything on race night was a good move because, Ronnie was fair and he was easy to talk to, and he was a good people person. And Jason did a lot of reaching out during the week, calling people, inviting them to come to the racetrack, and shoot, man, I can't tell you that I don't know that I've ever had anybody call and invite me to their racetrack. It would just kind of catch me off guard.
Right.
I went to Southern Oklahoma Speedway one time, and John Webb and them up there had a late model race, and it's the first time I'd been there since they owned the racetrack. And hell, I squirreled out and won the feature, and they called me by name on the radio. I raced at racetracks for 5 or 6 years straight. And they never said, "Hey, good job on the feature tonight, Patrik Daniel. Way to go."
It's
whatever.
always your car number every time.
Right.
Good job, 75.
Yeah, if that,
Yeah.
it's usually just
A lot of people don't
75,
say
47, 21
To
to
the
the scales.
scales. Yeah.
That's it. You know what I'm saying? No
That's
good
true.
job, none of that. And so, it sounds silly, really, but if there's any promoters out there watching, fellas, as well as I do and we do that, we don't particularly race because we're getting rich, making a lot of money.
Right.
At the end of the day,
We race because we enjoy it
yeah, and so
and feel wanted.
Yeah,
feel like you're part of something.
yeah, exactly. If a guy just knows your name or congratulates you a little bit, sometimes that means a lot to a guy that works every day and struggling to get there anyhow. And you got to think, I would say 95-7% of the guys that drive and race work in the heat all day every day from sun up to sundown, then come home, try to do a little bit of stuff with their family around the house, then go out in the shop and work till 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning every night on a race car to be successful. and then turn around and get up and work in a hot heat all day, every day again.
Right.
You know, or at least that's how it goes for me.
That's how it goes for me too.
And I figured so.
Sometimes it'll wear you out.
Well, that's what we got to say. Lost a good one there, Ronnie Sigman out of it, and unfortunately, and now a little bit of brightness. We're going to use some magic here, and we'll just... All right, ladies and gentlemen, and our first topic here tonight is Derby deeds, and of course the Dirt Derby, the truck race that did occur. Wow, we're having slip-ups here tonight, but... when we were talking about some of the drivers in there, I mentioned one guy, he kind of the only one who earned his way from dirt. That was Chase Briscoe. And you said, yeah, I don't know that guy. But I texted you before. That's who I picked, Chase Briscoe, and he got it done. Logan Seavey, of course, I was speaking highly of him. Of
Absolutely.
course, he's a Larson Part 2. Opinions on the truck race, though. You're the new guy. We'll let you lead the charge here real quick.
The truck race was good the last 10, 15 laps. Leading up to it there, they kind of got strung out. Logan Seavey looked like he's going to be the clear winner.
Do you think sometimes it's that race that everybody thinks it was such a great race, because it's almost like that just happening is so big of a deal to some people. It's like, man, it's a great event, and really it's not that great, until the last 10 laps, like I said.
I think it's new to people too, in today's day and time, stuff that's new is good, and
right.
This is not 100% new.
But the first year, no way, because it was so new. It was so revolutionary.
It was a big new thing.
Now you're a couple years into it.
It's going to slowly fall off and get less and less because it's going to, become watered down to a lot of people. Oh, we done been there and seen it. And but the end of that race, that was a pretty good race at the end,
Right.
There for about 60, 70 laps leading up to the last part of it, it was, wasn't a whole lot going on.
It was trucks on dirt.
Yeah, they were struggling, and the biggest thing I see about it is, man, those trucks are slow.
They are.
They really are.
Slow. People get mad at me for saying they're slower than a factory stock, but they really are, man.
They probably are, honestly.
I think they were turning 20-second laps. Late models are turning 14s and sprint cars 13s, I think, around there. I'd have to check them out for sure. They're 5-6 seconds slower than an actual dirt car. That kind of makes me upset. But
I was really hoping we get to see some kind of, because they were running modifieds there.
Right. You could see them in the background.
Year they were running, and me and Steve Neighbors wanted to go up there, and he had talked to Kenny Wallace, and we were going to go down there and hang out. And we wanted to go real bad just for the modified deal. We really didn't care about the trucks. We were like, hey, let's go watch the modified show, and we'll watch trucks too. And I was kind of hoping that they would show something of the modified deal, but they didn't.
No respect.
They showed
at all.
about a half a lap of hot laps, and
Right.
it was in the background,
Right.
And it was like,
no respect at all.
I wish they'd just kind of just show it, just so new people could see it.
I think something that a lot of people watch that race for too is to see the dirt guy. It goes back to the whole Cole effect again, which I want to say thanks to a few people who've approached me at the track that said ever since I mentioned that Days of Thunder deal, they went and researched it themselves, and they're like, wow, you're right, so that's a good thing. But it's almost the same concept. We're cheering these dirt guys that are out there racing asphalt guys. That's kind of the allure too. Seeing Logan Seavey, seeing Chase, Chase Briscoe, different story, but Abby that was out there, and Chris Wyndham, all these dirt guys. That's kind of the allure of that race as well. So
I don't think the dirt guys did bad.
No,
they did pretty good.
Wyndham and Seavey were up front all night long too. So what about you? Your opinion on the dirt derby?
Man, I think it was a fairly good race. I think that it's better for dirt racing than not, because at least they're doing something. The one thing I will say, I do agree with both of y'all and Jack especially, like, it wouldn't have hurt them to give a little highlight clip of like 2 laps and the guy winning the feature coming to the checkered flag or something on, in a mod, and then a quick interview. They could have took literally 45 seconds of that deal and scanned, you know what I'm saying? Put together a quick clip, and then they would have seen what a real dirt car looked like versus them
it's
trucks.
Like I have been saying, and there's been plenty of people agree with me, the last thing that NASCAR wants the world to see is a damn late model or sprint car on ABC or Fox or FS. That's scary. At the end of the day, we are a competitor of them. No matter how much ties we have with, World Racing Group, with NASCAR and all that, and all these different places all buddied up with the asphalt land. At the end of the day, if a sprint car or late model becomes more popular, that's a threat to all of NASCAR. Now all these regular guys get the attention. So there's probably somebody up there with control who's saying don't show that stuff. We want these people to respect and love this truck race, the regular people.
Well, there's only so much of the pie to go around, and if you have to start slicing it up, then they're going to get a smaller piece of that pie.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And
it's a big corporate deal, everyone knows that. And all them sponsors is what drives the NASCAR deal. And they're scared to death that one of them sponsors may, one of them big CEOs may go, man, I kind of like those couple laps in that modified deal, and tell his old, marketing guy at work, hey, let's check this little series. What is this UMP series, or what is this USRA series,
or even some of the higher
late
ups,
model series? What is this Lucas Oil stuff? Let's check it out.
They don't. The last person that wants that is NASCAR. Yep. I guarantee you, that's the last person that wants to see that. I keep preaching about how they use dirt racing people and fans to be relevant still to this day. I mean, that's kind of a good example of it. I mean, that race is set up perfectly to where they're literally using everyone in the dirt community to watch and support that race. It's on a Wednesday night for a reason. So all the dirt track racers and dirt track fans and anyone who likes dirt track ain't got nothing else to do but watch that damn race. If that race was on a Friday or Saturday, I mean,
we're gonna be racing,
right? It would,
most of us.
Most dirt fans would rather watch a sprint car or late model, and they would be at a dirt track watching it. So I mean,
I wonder how many people watch the first one.
I do not know.
I wonder if it's going
probably
up or
be
down,
higher. It would probably be higher. But once again, I don't know who wouldn't. I think NASCAR people would look forward to watching that race. I think the only crowd it would get old towards would be the dirt fans.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I think regular NASCAR fans look forward to that race because they don't watch, NASCAR or dirt racing every week. That is.
Oh, definitely. That first one that come on, I was gun ho, had that bad boy recorded. I gotta see this, and then the next year I was like, set that DVR and we'll come through about halfway, and it kind of less and less. Even this year I think I missed about half of it and I had to watch it on DVR. But that first one, boy, you was fired up for it, like, this could be great. This could be great.
It was such a shock factor.
Yeah. Well, one thing I will say is we were right in our last talk show about the dirt guys would take it to them regardless.
They did really good.
Yeah.
I mean, Logan Seavey, I knew would do good. People underestimate the simulation stuff big time. I mean, anybody who takes advantage of that, I mean, there's no other way to judge or gauge how a big truck's gonna roll around that track than the next best thing than doing it is the simulation. And Logan Seavey is dove all into that stuff.
So they make those simulators for the seat.
They do got some. They do
had
got
one at
some.
PRI last year. I think the pro model was $85,000. But when you brake, it's got deals when you strap in. The seat belt pulls you back down in there, so it literally feels like you're decelerating. When you touch the throttle, the seat hikes up just like you're rolled up on the bars. I mean, it's pretty wicked. And the screens are all rounded, big TV screens, and you literally can look out your right and left window and see stuff in the game. Like it's ridiculous.
The only one I've ever played is that one over at Smiley's, and I'm horrible at it.
Well, see, the one over there at Smiley's, which I don't want to say.
Me and you both.
I don't want to.
Jace got in there the other day and said, man, this ain't nothing like a real game or like a real car, Dad.
Well, I mean, which is what y'all are using there. I mean, if you ask some of the more real, like the big names in real racing right now, like Larson's, even Seavey, Ricky Thornton Jr., Mike McKinney's another guy, Larson, Bell. They all did their simulation, a majority of their simulation racing, prior to coming mainstream on R Factor, which is a completely a different game than what's at Smile and what's big right now out there that's everybody's watching on Facebook. That's new technology. Now R Factor looks uglier than that, but it drives. You can kind of feel the car a little bit better. At least that's my opinion. That's what some of the other ones have said. But I mean, that's just where they're going down the road on that one. So
that's pretty neat. But again, and another thing, I've had several talks with guys, other racers, and Jack may or may not agree with me here, but like a little bit, that to me that hurt. That again, that goes back to technology hurting racing, because if I can spend $10,000 on a complete simulator machine and I can drive it at 11 o'clock at night, or I can drive it when it's rainy, or I can drive it year round, and me and Jack can race, and I don't have to leave my house And the best part is, whenever he runs over me or I run over him, I just reach up, hit the restart button, and we go again. Mm-hmm. There isn't no late night working. There's no tire prep. There's no shock dynoing. There's no spring smashing. There's no bullshit to keep up with. How am I going to keep this turd wagon on the front instead of running fifth this week? You know what I mean? That part of it just goes hand in hand for me and my thinking. The way the generation is set up now, you know, all these young kids come up, if they don't have an air conditioned shop to work in, like, I heard a story today. This guy bought his kid a brand new factory stock.
Though. I mean,
yeah, but his dad bought this kid a brand new factory stock, the best of everything. And he said, if you don't get off the video game and go out there and at least work on it a little bit, put it together, like all the pieces are there, you know, just put it together, then I'm going to sell it. But the kid wouldn't get off the video game. So he sold a race car.
Well,
you know?
I don't know. That's a huge generalization, because I'm sure there's kids out there that work on their car that may not have daddies that buy them factory stocks. You know, there's 20-year-olds.
There's definitely kids that want to.
I know race car drivers that are 20s, you know, young 20s that are in the shop all the time, just like y'all.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
but I think what you're talking about making that point is more so privileged versus not privileged. Because somebody who has a daddy that can just buy them factory stocks, you know, that's kind of a privileged way of living. You probably ain't had to work much for anything. So I mean, there's a lot of kids out there that still have to work for what they got, you know. And
I think what Pat's getting at though is just the way it's set up. It ingrains that nature into them, like, hey, you know, this is a video game.
Well, no,
yeah,
we're that good.
To be on, I mean, I can speak to be a top of simulation racing. You got to be on it and tweaking and adjusting. Because the thing on simulation racing, the biggest difference between the guy winning and the guy finishing 10th is setup. It's all setup, because you throw engine out, chassis out, you throw everything out of the whole equation of performance. Even tires are all this. Everything's the same. The only thing that's different is setup. So I mean, if 90% of those people on the games, if they're running anywhere up front, they're on there making setups all the time. Yeah. So I mean, you could take that same concept, take it to an actual real. If you got you a race car, you would take that same mentality of, okay, well, now I have a real race car. No, I can't just race it all the time. What did I do while I was on the simulator? I was busy making setups and tinkering and trying to be faster. It's the same thing. It's just, you're sitting in front of a computer screen instead of out on the car.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what really happens in the sim world. 90% of those people's time are running thousands of laps setting the car up and trying to get a 1/10 of a second.
And I'm not taking anything away from those guys by any means. I'm just saying, like, when it... I drive a video game car different than I do my real race car. Like,
I run over people.
For sure, dude. I don't give a shit. I don't never lift. I smoke that. It looks about like I was driving a video game at Lone Star last weekend the way I hit the wall. But I mean, pretty much, you know. I mean, it's just different when you got your own money and your own time invested, and you've worked on this car and haven't turned a lap in 4 months, and everything on it's the best that you can afford and do, and you carry that thing to the racetrack the first night. You drive that different. You do a video game car that you could just reach up and go, that shit didn't work. Let's try it again. You know what I mean?
I think most people.
That's all I'm saying.
I think most people do get that if they got a real car. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe the examples we're using are bad. I mean, guy buying a factory stock and all that. I mean, maybe that's the bigger issue there on that subject. But
for sure,
just bad examples of each side, which happens all the time. That's how Fox News and CNN get you mad at one another. They put some crazy left and then some crazy right, and now you think anybody who looks like that in the real world is just like them, you know. So, but anyway, so next topic. We'll get off this. I don't even know how we went down that rabbit hole. Immigration reform is our next topic here, and it's about these NASCAR people are crossing the borders to get over here into dirt land. And now they're wanting to bring even more of them over. How are we going to get the tax? No, I'm just playing. But Xfiniti and Cup races, that's the topic, bringing them now on to dirt. Kyle Larson was quoted as saying Xfiniti maybe, but no for Cup. They belong on pavement tracks and real road courses. Me personally, I say if you want NASCAR drivers over here, throw them in late model sprint cars or modifieds and let our guys wax their ass like we all know they would. would and embarrass them in front of the world. What do y'all think about Xfiniti and Cup coming to Eldora now?
Well, man, I'm a race car driver. Pat's a race car driver. I know we're going to feel the same about this. I'll race anything, anywhere, anytime. It don't matter.
Well, but that's another point is those guys should be coming in. They should be, well, they're not that way, whether it's contractually or not. But we can't always afford to run their stuff. They can all afford to run ours. We were talking about $40,000 just to run that one race, right? I think is the price tag, I guess.
You can get a lower end truck for about $10,000.
Lower end.
Because I was actually, no bullshit, I was going to try to put something together and run the truck race. But I don't have 10 grand laying around in the corner just to pick up and go run it. But one of the lower end, not very great trucks.
My question on that, you obviously know a little bit. Do you have to have the NASCAR license? You have to go get certified.
Not on short track stuff like that. The way they do it is, I think you have to pass like a certain few little tests, nothing major, and then you're allowed to run short tracks, and then they gradually bump you up to super, mile and a half, super speedways, et cetera, on basically how you're doing.
So Xfiniti and Cup though, what about that stuff? Y'all are racers obviously, but what about them bringing that stuff on over too?
I think it's probably a lot of sponsor talking behind the guys that are saying they don't want to do it, because like I told Pat.
No. They just said this is just a debate on if it should happen or not.
Oh, I'm all for it. Go for it.
Yeah, it does.
But if Kyle Larson's standing there saying no, Kyle Larson's a racer. He runs on dirt.
I think he's more saying it don't belong on dirt. Xfiniti maybe, Cup no. It belongs on pavement and real road courses.
I don't agree with that.
If there's a draw for it and it makes sense, do it. Right. Let's race. Let's see what you got.
You're talking about one race a year, dude.
Yeah.
Not half the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know. What hell? If there's anybody that should be for it, it'd be him. He'd probably waxed their ass.
I think he gets the perspective of it. When are we gonna say they can't do something with what? You can't really. I guess they can do whatever the hell they want, but at the same time, there certain walls that are drawn between certain types of vehicles and where they race and how they race. A Cup car. I don't think it's too obnoxious or crazy to say that a Cup car belongs on pavement tracks and road courses. It don't belong on Eldora. I don't think that's too crazy to say. It's just an opinion. Obviously, that's what it's all about. I don't like it because it just keeps playing off of the dirt crowd. That's all it is. They're kind of reaching for everything they can get because they ain't got nothing that's worth viewing anymore.
Yeah.
So they're just reaching to try to stay alive, pretty much.
NASCAR has gone downhill bad.
Yeah, they have.
And they, like you're saying, they're reaching.
That's why they've changed. That's why they've changed their whole point system and chase and this and that. They never had any of that crap when they were in their prime.
They
got this playoff system and all this other stuff. They have tried to be so much like other sporting events, and what they did is they basically brought a little old girl to the dance and then left her ass once they got there, and now they ain't got to ride home. In lack of a better term, they did not dance with the one that brought them there. And the people that brought them there, they don't advertise to them. They don't go after them. And it is the people that got NASCAR where it was a bunch of hard-working, everyday, red-blooded American people that enjoyed watching that. And back when, their drivers were that way too. These drivers came up and, Harry Gant, Carol Yarborough, I know Dale Earnhardt, even Davey Allison.
I think a lot of
they all had jobs at some point and knew that, dude, I don't want a real job, and I think I can make enough money driving a race car around here that I can make it still happen.
Well, I still think that's being too heavily dependent on. When they were in their heyday, they were also feeding off of a local racing scene in a way as well. Like Awesome Bill from Dawsonville, that wasn't just a name because he was from Dawsonville. It's because the whole damn town of Dawsonville knew who the fuck he was.
For sure.
When you were a badass local, even we mentioned Ronnie Sigman earlier, he would tell me how he would go to the grocery store back in the 80s and somewhat, and everyone would know who he was, if he won a race or not.
Yeah.
So local towns were race fans in general. So when they took a guy like Bill Elliott, unlike now when they take a guy, you know, one of these rich kids or whatever, I mean, that's why they go after the dirt guys so harshly, is because at least they're bringing a dirt fan base.
Yeah.
These other kids that are coming from short track late models maybe or something like that, they're not coming from World of Outlaws like Larson or Chilibo or Bell. They're coming from little nowheres, you know, and they have no fan base because the local racing scene is just destroyed.
Mm-hmm. Running
you know?
dwarf cars, 15 people in the
Right,
stands.
I mean, no one knows who
but
they
their dad's
even,
a millionaire.
Right, exactly.
Joey Logano, prime
Exactly,
example.
Joey Logano. I mean, sliced bread. I mean, but that's the biggest problem, is the local scene has no notoriety or respect or anything like that. So when these guys are going there, they're not bringing any fan bases with them. You know, you speak about when they blew up, you know, Indy getting split up was a big deal, but Jeff Gordon was a big fucking deal from that. You know, he brought the dirt crowd with him. That was the first driver really that brought the dirt crowd with him, you know. And
Jeff Gordon was hated when he first came in.
But
though.
you know,
he was hated by people, but I guarantee you the sprint car people and the dirt people were silently cheering from him, because in their mind it was a little cold trickle, you know, Rowdy Burns still happening.
when NASCAR first got started, more of their races were on dirt than pavement, and it slowly just progressed to where they got more pavement races. So initially, when they first came about, they were majority dirt racers, you know, back in the day, and then they slowly transgressed to this, what they got now, to where they don't race on dirt at all and don't do any of this. And that's kind of what I was saying going back, you know, even in Earnhardt's day, when he was first getting started, like in the mid to late 70s, and the same thing with Petty, all those guys ran dirt tracks first before, you know, as they were coming up also. You
Dale
know?
Earnhardt's a great example. I mean, people talk to me like I'm crazy when I mention about local racing scene being big and stuff. That's what the problem is, you know, nobody knowing. I mean, Earnhardt was running local dirt and local asphalt tracks, and they talk about money being out here. If you were a big name and racing was a big thing in Dallas, and I don't know, freaking Sewell, Cadillac, you know, was race fans, when NASCAR comes to town, they're putting your ass in a truck, or they're putting your ass in a vehicle to race those guys because you're a local fucking superstar.
Right.
That's what happened with Earnhardt. You know, he was a big name. Some freaking car dealership was, you know, knew this guy. That's why, you know, sponsors were at the track and on the side of the car too, because these tracks were popular. And when they came to town, you threw in the local badass, and it was David versus Goliath. And this was happening in every single race across the country in NASCAR's heyday.
Yeah.
At every town they went to, the town was race fans because the local racing scene.
Yep.
And then the badass local, it wasn't waiting for Super or Tom's to come to town. It was waiting for NASCAR to come to town. They'd throw that sumbitch in a cup car.
For sure.
Or a Busch car. You know, that's how it worked. It's all based, and they want to call it grassroots racing. It's more so a harvesting effect where we grow the crops and they come in once or twice a year and collect.
Sure.
You know, so I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's based on fan bases that are created, and they're trying to fabricate fan bases by coming out here and here's Chase Elliott. You know, Bill Elliott's grandson, like him. You know, here, you know, because that was successful with Dale Jr. You know, somebody related to somebody who used to race. That's why they're using that same thing, but it ain't gonna work.
I'm telling you right now, anybody, if they could make as much money racing dirt as they did pavement, they'd never go to pavement. If the work and the money aspect was the same, there's not very many guys that would go ride around in a pavement car if you could make the same amount of money racing dirt. The problem is, the reason that those guys leave dirt and go to NASCAR is they can make so much more money in such a fast time frame that it almost ensures them that they'll be able to come back and race dirt forevermore, whether they have sponsors or not.
They'll pimp themselves out for that dollar. I mean, you was talking about Ken Schrader, your talkings with him, talking about how hard it is to run out there, and basically it's just sitting down for 4 hours without, you know, TV.
Kenny Schrader's a really cool dude. He come to Mountain Creek 2014, I think. I don't remember the year, 14 or 15. And we raced over there. I won the feature. Kenny run fourth, and we sat in tech, and we talked for at least an hour. And I said, you know, I always thought about it, and, you know, you always want to ask one of them NASCAR guys, how hard really is it, you know? And I said, hell, I'm going to ask him, you know, and he's a real nice guy. And I asked him, I said, Kenny, I said, how tough is it driving NASCAR? I said, be honest with me, don't Don't bullshit me. You know, you think a local dirt tracker that's decent, that wins races, does good, you think he could do it? He looked me right dead square in the eye, and he said yes. He said, I really think a good, above-average dirt tracker, a guy that goes out, wins races, you know, wins big shows, does good, you can get out there and do it.
Yeah, it sounds the same thing of Kevin Harvick, you know. Do you think he could get in a late model and do good? Yeah, he could probably get around the track, and he goes out there and looks pretty bad. You know, Elliott Sadler, who's a Busch guy and runs up front sometimes, goes out there and spins out in hot laps. I mean, it transfers both ways.
Yeah.
It's just that one, if you can do that one, or if you know somebody who knows somebody and you can do that one, because it ain't really about if you can do it. There's a lot of people who can do it. Then you can make a lot of money real quick. That's why it's placed on such a higher level than every other sport right now, because of how much money you can make. But that wasn't always the case. What I keep trying to tell people is the price gaps between dirt and NASCAR wasn't always that big of a deal. I mean, champ cars used to run for $30,000 back in the 70s. That was huge money. IndyCar dominated. So, I mean, it's just interesting how it works out. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know.
You know, I was talking with Billy Carroll last night at Ronnie's viewing, and Billy Carroll's another local badass for sure and a racing icon around here. I ain't gonna tell you how many features he's won, but he told me
him versus Dale Jarrett in a modified. No, I'm just
shit.
Easy,
Billy Carroll
easy all day, all day.
Yeah,
even their Hall of Famers are jokes. I mean, come
I'd still
on.
put Billy Carroll at. He told me he was 70 years old. I'd still put him in the top 10 every night in a modified if he had good equipment. It was set up, you know. But he told me last night. I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was in the late 80s or early 90s. And he won like $80-something thousand driving a dirt car, and that's all the fuck he did. He drove a race car for a living.
And that's back when we're talking about 90s new trucks about 20 grand.
They raced
15.
They
15
raced,
grand.
Pit passes was $10 and $12. You know, it was $3 or $4 getting a general admission. He said they run pump gas was, 70, 80 cents a gallon or something like that. And then, the cars they had, man, I mean, he didn't say, but my guess is maybe they was 10,000, 15,000 if you had a damn nice one. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think they'd be that much.
I'm sure not, but I'm saying
because you could build a lot of it yourself.
You could build so much of it yourself. That's right. And but they paid $950 or $1,000 on Friday night at one racetrack, and then they paid $1,250 another night. And heat races paid. He said a fast car heat paid $98. He said I don't know why they come up with a number 98. Fast car heat paid $98. Slow car heat paid $82 to win it, and then it stepped down from there to 4 places, and I think fourth got $20. You know what I'm saying? And it was kind of broke down, and then it paid $100 to win a trophy dash if it was your night to run a trophy dash, and if you won all of it, it paid another $100. You know what I'm saying? If you won heat race trophy dash,
you got sweet money.
You got sweet money. Yeah. So
and you were in the newspaper, and there were girls in the stands with binoculars looking in the trailer trying to see you naked. You know what I mean?
Guarantee you, man.
And the trophy girls were waiting on you
Guarantee
after the races.
So what?
But the biggest deal then was the stands were full.
There you go.
You could still pay that much if the stands were full.
Why are the stands not full anymore?
Relevance, respect, awareness. Respect. Really, we talked about this. I say awareness and respect, but the simple fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, if you have respect, you have all of that going with it. They just don't respect us. And I think regular people just are idiotic to the situation. In every other sport in the world, there's some kind of process for those NFL and NBA guys to be on my TV. So when these regular people see that NASCAR up there, I guess there's some way those guys are the best in the world. And that guy down the street playing basketball 25, he's some guy who couldn't make it. So I guess that guy down the street racing a late model 25, he's just some bum who couldn't make it in high school or college. They just don't get it. They don't know. We're talking about how nobody knows what a late model sprint car is. These are the people I'm talking about. The whole damn world. They just don't understand it.
Yeah, times are definitely totally different than they used to be. And my family came
and back then in the newspaper it didn't say local grassroots racing. It said professional auto racing.
Yeah. My grandma and grandfather, they started going to the Devil's Bowl. And they didn't race. They didn't know anyone that raced, but they thought, man, this is cool, and that's how my dad got into it. And they went down there and watched Shady and McElroy and all them guys,
Johnny Rutherford from
They watched all them guys, and they were just fans. My grandmother and grandfather were just fans. And that's how the whole thing started. Eventually, 10 years from then, my grandpa said, I'm going to try this. And he got a race car, then my dad fell in love with it, and then here I am, Now you go to the races, You walk through them stands, and I guarantee you can do this. You walk through the stands and ask them, why are you here? Oh, my neighbor drives that factory stock.
Exactly.
Or my husband drives that
That's
car.
why our
Or
biggest
my
crowds
brother
are when
drives
there's a
that
big
car.
back gate now
Yeah.
because it's everybody who knows
It's
somebody.
nobody that goes, well, I really enjoy dirt
And
track
then you
racing.
go
I
down
come
the
down here and
street,
race."
or if you're at the Tulsa Expo Center, you go across the street to get a cheeseburger, and that person's lived there their whole life in Tulsa. And you know, have you ever heard of the Chili Bowl? No, what's that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane. You go right down the street. And one of the main reasons I got to this awareness is the whole damn problem. The system's broke. When I was promoting these damn tracks, I would actually go out and talk to people, you know, like actually try, you know, wherever I was going. And I started noticing weird trends. First of all, no one knew what the hell you were talking about. Didn't matter. But one of the places I did notice that people knew was like areas like Rockwall, Highland Park. Like up in Highland Park, yeah, people knew about it. It's because most of those people are a little older in age, and they remember a world when it was mainstream. It was covered. Being in a newspaper in the 90s is similar to being on Fox 4 News' Facebook page or something like that every week. You know, it's the same style of coverage, about the same reach. You know, there wasn't no internet back then. But I think it's a sense of awareness, respect. I mean, people don't come out to watch second best. Back then, there was no such thing as this NASCAR or anything like that, you know. It was professional auto racing, you know. So when you went back then, guys looked on the track and said, wow, these are some badasses. Now they look out on the track and like, well, these are the guys who couldn't make it, you know. So, I mean, I think it's a respect. Really, it's a big respect deal, I think, at the end of the day.
We need to get back to getting those people that are down there because they like it. You know, right now we're supporting ourselves.
We got to show them.
We pay our own purses, and one way or another, you know, my wife and kids up in the stands, I gave them the money to get in the stands. You know, I mean, we're all paying for ourselves. Back in the day, it wasn't that way. You know, I got programs out the wazoo all the way back to the 50s. You can open a program from the 70s, NCRA Modifieds, 15,000, you know, big special show and this and that, and North versus South, and they'd have guys coming down from all over the place. And it's like, damn, guys, we don't even run for that now. You know, we don't even run nothing close to that now.
Right,
like,
exactly.
That's what Billy Carroll said last night. He said that everybody gets excited because there's a 1,500 to win modified show, and they think that's a big race. He said, hell, we race for that every Saturday night.
Yeah.
You know? 1,500 wasn't no money, you know. If it didn't pay $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000, ain't nobody even broke their good boots out over that deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely insane, and you look at the fan side of it, and
the cost to win ratio is so out of
destroyed.
round. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's destroyed.
And again, to me, a lot of it goes back to technology. You know, I mean, nobody builds there's very few guys that build their own shocks. You got to have a $7,000, $8,000 machine to read your shocks.
But if you take the price to cost to win and all that from back then and you transferred it to today, you know, a hypothetical situation, you could afford to do that.
Back then?
No, now. You would be able to afford these shock deals and all this stuff that you have to do if the price and the pay was...
If
it inflated.
Okay.
If it inflated correctly,
if
it inflated correctly, you could afford a modified for $80,000.
For sure.
You would be, you know, if you're racing for $1,500 back, when was it again? When did he say?
In the early to mid 80s.
80s. So you're talking about $1,500. You're talking about right now it'd be about $6,000 to $8,000 a week to win in a modified.
Yeah.
If that was the case, well, yeah, you could afford all that. You know, but you just can't anymore.
You'd have to win some races.
You'd have to win, but at 8,000 to win, you're talking about 800 to start.
Yeah, amen.
And we're talking about realistic situations if the damn crowds are there.
Yeah.
You know, and the not only the inflation of people going away, but the inflation to get in the front gate. People want to talk about, you know, man, $15 is just too much. You go to a football game or you go to anything like that. Go to a movie. Just a football game, $75 to park at a football game, and it's 20 to 25, 30. And these concerts ain't cheap either that you go to nowadays that sell out everywhere around the world. So,
$8 beers.
It's just
racetrack, you can bring your own cooler.
It's just the NBA to D League, man. You can charge a big price if you're viewed as worth my dollar bill, you know, and we're just not viewed as worth the dollar bill anymore. Because of respect. It goes back to the respect deal. People want to get mad at me because I call NASCAR out on what they're doing, but their illusion that they have created, they created this with their marketing teams and strategies. that they're the best and you know, that we're the number one and all that. They're the ones that saying this to everybody. I'm just one going out there and saying y'all are full of shit. You know, that's pretty much all I'm doing. I'm like, these guys are badass. You know, that King of the Hill race that I had, King of the Will race. I thought that would be a great idea to bust their ass in front of everybody. But like you said, you know, nobody. Why would they race Jack Sartain in a modified and get their ass embarrassed in front of the country? Because, you know, one of the main reasons that would actually help them is when you go and ask people, have you heard of NASCAR? Most of them say yes. And then if you ask them to name a driver, they have no idea who the fuck's racing over there either. Yeah, they don't know. The most popular driver right now in NASCAR is Lightning McQueen. No fucking lie. That is the most popular racer in NASCAR right now. Everyone else is a ghost. I mean, regular people have heard of NASCAR.
People still think Junior's still racing, probably.
Oh,
you mentioned Junior's my man.
Yeah,
man.
you mentioned Jeff Gordon. You mentioned Jeff Gordon or Dale Sr. People are like, oh, yeah, maybe heard of that. But you go talk to them now, they've heard of NASCAR day and night. They ain't heard one of their damn drivers. And that just goes back to they ain't built no fan bases out of nowhere. You know, Dallas, back in the 90s, Dallas, if it was today, you'd be a local hero, celebrity if you were a local race car winning champion. You know, now you're nobody. You know.
Well, Pat, I mean, you started before me. We used to at least get mentioned in the paper.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I got newspaper clippings saying, man, I want to race. You know, that's really, I'd get up on Sunday, I'm going to get me a paper. I'm saving that. You know, and now you go get a paper and it's a bunch of shit.
Well, and my point to that is, you were in the paper back then, just how we were talking about the prices inflating. The media back then that was given to a paper is, like I said, equivalent to being on a television segment or on the Facebook. Imagine if Fox 4 and all these local news stations were sharing the results of Devil's Bow, or imagine ESPN sharing the results of World of Outlaws and all that, you know, or having that highlighted on SportsCenter or something.
Hell, ESPN used to have Thursday Night Thunder.
Yeah, I mean,
there was all kinds of stuff on there, you know.
Yeah.
You never knew what was going to be on there. Midgets, World Outlaws.
Well, and they had this thing called Speed World too. You know, when more than one thing mattered back then. It just completely shifted throughout the Jeff Gordon era, I call it. So. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to get into our driver spotlight of the episode. New little feature segment that we got here. And to open it up, we got a guy who's from the area, did really well in the area, did good in Tulsa, won some Longhorn races as well. From Arlington, Texas, now all the way up in Bloomington, Indiana, Anton Hernandez. Do we got you there, Anton?
Yes, we do.
So talk about your transfer and starting out. I mean, you ain't got to go down the whole driver bio. It's just kind of checking in on how you're doing up there. But you did a lot of the micro stuff, did some sprint car stuff. And everything went well for you there in Tulsa this last year. Now you went up there into non-wing sprint car land. You said you're driving for that DIRTi team. Talk about it a little bit.
But yeah, after winning the shootout, the guy crew chiefing on our car for the sprint car this year, Dallas Kinzer, he hit me up after the race like, hey, we got these guys, Mike and Tom Smith, they got a sprint car, they need a driver, and they're like, hey, you want to come to Indiana and wheel through a 5 wing car, you can. I was like, well, heck yeah, I want to go, because Indiana, you know, is the biggest state to go race dirt cars, so, and biggest names possible out there. So I was like, sure. So I packed up my stuff and headed on to Indiana, and got to the shop, got fitted to the seat, and so far we have about 15, I'd say 12 to 15 races we've gone through, and so far we got 3 wins, so everything's going pretty smooth. We just had a little bit of bad luck at the beginning of the season, but so halfway through we got our stuff together, and now we're rolling pretty well, finishing podiums just about every weekend. As long as we don't really get in a wreck or mistakes, I think we're doing good. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you're a great example of kind of the guys I talk about. You know, not everybody's lucky, you know, to be able to go to NASCAR or something like that. You know, getting the dirt track racing scene to a point where it can be profitable for racers would definitely help not only the guys who, you know, didn't be as lucky as you and be able to race from a younger age, but guys who get older and are able to build cars who have talent. It's a big-time talent-based sport. I'm sure you probably have aspirations to get to NASCAR, but as we say, it's probably more so you can get the big check so you can buy a sprint car team and do exactly what everybody else does when they get up there.
Yeah, that's true. Like my dream growing up, like I never knew when I was little it was ever possible to get to NASCAR unless like you had a bunch of money. But I mean, drivers like Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson made it very well known that it's very possible. But it's all about how much work you put into it, and like you have to get lucky here and there, but as long as you get connected with the right people, it's possible. It's not impossible, but my dream has always been able to run World of Outlaws for a living. Like if I went to NASCAR, I would still always want to drop back down like Larson and all these guys are doing and run dirt racing, because that's just what I love.
Yeah, you kind of sounded like Larson right there when that's pretty much the thing he says. He wants to go run World of Outlaws sprint cars. Do you think that it's possible? You know, I'm sure you've dealt with a lot of regular people in the world. They don't know what a sprint car is, and you have to explain it to them. If dirt racing did get bigger and did start getting some more mainstream attention, the profitability to be behind the wheel of these dirt cars would obviously go up as well. Wouldn't that be a really good future in the motorsports world, to where it's not just 40 lucky good drivers in NASCAR getting all the money and attention, but dirt track racers are too?
I mean, yeah, for sure, because it's just more of a chance and more of an opportunity for other people to be able to see the sport and just be able to go through the range, because NASCAR is only 43 drivers, but in sprint car racing, you can have 100 people show up and try to make a show. So, I mean, anyone from anywhere can come and try to, like, make the race, and it's nowhere near as expensive. I mean, NASCAR, you got to put in a good $1 million just minimum, basically, but sprint car, you could have about 40, 50 grand, and, like, say like a top-notch sprint car is 40, 50 plus grand, but it's nowhere near NASCAR. But still, it'd make it easier for guys like us to be able to do it for a living and make money at it.
I'm sitting next to late model and modified guys right now. You have any questions for him? What he's doing up there? I mean, it's a lot. He's in like the heart country. It's kind of like if you were a late model guy going to Tennessee or something like that. I mean, that's kind of where he's at right now.
Yeah. Good job, man. That's all I want to say. I mean, I'm proud of you and proud for what you've accomplished and what you're doing up there, and I wish you all the luck.
Yeah, you're living the dirt racer's dream, you know, coming from hometown and getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
So what are some of the big name drivers up there that you've got to like interact with that you know kind of looked up to as well? Some of the guys that are in that region that it's kind of like the mecca of sprint car racing.
Well, so far just being here, I've been around a couple of guys. I've got to talk to guys like, I don't know, like Dave Darling. I've talked to him a couple of times. He's been one of my biggest idols. He's the most winningest USAC driver out here in the country. And
the real people's champ is what I like to call him. You know, they gave that name to Chase Elliott, but he didn't do a damn thing to earn it. Dave Darling did.
Oh yeah, that's what it takes. It takes hard work, man. Like, people say, oh, you got lucky this, lucky that, and, like, all this, but it's hours upon hours upon hours of hard work. And I'm just chugging along, doing whatever I can. Need help at a shop, I'll come help, or working on a car, and I'm always trying to figure out how to do setups and whatnot. It's just, I do everything I can, but I've talked to a bunch of people just to try to learn as much as I can. Like, one of my buddies, Jason McDougal, he's another guy who's moved up from Oklahoma to come run up in Indiana, and now he's running USAC, sprint cars, midgets, whatever he can get into, just like I'm trying to do right now. But yeah, I just try to interact with everyone. You know,
yes, something about your story that you know your dad told me about how you went up there, and it's almost like how Jason Johnson went to PA on it with the train ticket. You went up there with pretty much no money. Is that the case? Talk about the story of just going up there.
Well, for me, my dad had an older truck, and I paid $500 for it, and I just had my clothes and myself and just some money I had saved up, and now I'm living at a house named Andy Bradley. I'm staying with the Bradleys. They gave me the opportunity to stay at their house.
Well, hold on. Are you sleeping on the couch or in a tent in the front yard? So.
Well, I got a bed. Fortunately, I got a bed, but it's kind of the same deal. Just luckily, they let me stay there. They let me stay there for free, and like, I'm working also, so I'm just in the shop and working every day. But for the most part, I'm just doing whatever I can. I mean, it's tough just moving out, you know, just leaving family, leaving friends, just go do what I love. I mean, this is all I want to do. But I've been real fortunate so far.
And I just think that's pretty important to point out. You know, probably some people up there saw this young kid come out of Texas. He's driving all this nice stuff. They think he has some money behind him. You pretty much just went on hopes and dreams.
Yeah, I've had to talk myself to get sponsors and whatnot. I have sponsors here and there giving me 500,000 here, another 500 there, but we have no big time sponsors. But I call up people and say, hey, if you're interested in helping us out, give a kid helping his dream, that's awesome, man. But yeah, I just do everything I can to race, you know, because it's what I love. It's blood, sweat, and tears. It's hard work, but it's what I want to do, so I'm going to do it.
So where can people catch you racing at the rest of the year here in that car? You run what? I know I've seen you run the wing stuff, non-wing stuff. What all different classes can you run up there? Because they got all different types, 360, 410, everything. And apparently the non-wing stuff, just kind of how like Nathan's Elite Series, you don't really need a big motor to be competitive up there. I mean, you probably would help you out, but you can still run well.
Well, yeah, like right now I'm running the 305 Race Savers. They have the non-wing 410 guys, and it's not just used that. They have local races where they're racing every single weekend. We're in Indiana. You go to a track, it's about an hour. You go to another track, it's about an hour. There's tracks everywhere. So if you want to run, you're going to run. But yeah, they have a lot of different classes. You can run open wheel base, 1,000 cc's. You got midgets. You got TQ midgets. You have wing 305s. Well, if you want to run 410 wing stuff, you've got to go to Ohio, but it's not that far. Mostly it's non-wing 410 stuff. Every once in a while you'll get some midget stuff over here, but for the most part, just 410 non-wing. But that's the goal. If you want to come to Indiana, you're going to come here to run some non-wing stuff. But here lately, I've been running the wing stuff. I like the wing stuff. And if you want to get up higher, from what I've been told, you want to try to move up to the wing 410, to possibly All-Stars, MOA, World of Outlaws, that kind of sanction. But if you want to run non-wing, it's good to run local, but if you're going to run non-wing, you're going to want to try to get the use tag. That's kind of the highest point there. But really, if you go to Indiana, there's way more opportunities. Like in Texas, you had guys who were putting like their own sons in the car, but up in here in Indiana, you have car owners to where you can call someone up, go, hey, got a car, I got a seat. If they want you in it, they'll put you in it. So it's just a better opportunities up here.
How about you go ahead and talk about your sponsors and who's helping you out, where you're going to be for the rest of the year?
Well, our sponsors right now, we got guys, Top Motorsports, they came through for a sponsorship this year. Bad Brad from Velocita, he's one of my suit guys, some of the greatest suits I've worn. I've been real loyal with him. He's been real loyal with me for the past 4 years. PXP Racewear, got Mark Skeen, Troy Morgan, Mike Smith, Thompson Smith, and we have a bunch of guys. We had recently Dean Henry, he's from Fremont, Ohio, got Big D's Pizza on the car now. And we have a bunch of guys just helping us, just small guys, just come from anywhere, man. I talk to everyone I can. Robert Boswell, Barbara Warnke, my dad, will be at Putnamville. So we have a pretty good amount of racing. I'm going to try and get a 410 ride worked out here, maybe Sunday or next Friday. So we'll see.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. That's Anton Hernandez there with our driver's spotlight here tonight on Talking Dirty.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we're getting into our final combinational topic. It's kind of going to be a tab on a new topic and a tab on a old familiar friend. We got Shock and Awe. We're going to mix these up. Shock and Awe and Crate Conformed. So we'll start off with Shocking, and we got on the phone here a special guest, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Elliott. Let everybody know that you're out here, Chris.
I'm here.
And tell people who don't know who you are. You're that 9 car with the checkered hood, or what is it, the roof? And
yeah, checkered roof, 915.
You've won a couple
RP
heat
station
races.
wagon.
You won a couple heat races or something like that, right?
Yeah, lately.
So what was the biggest heat race you've won so far?
We won the Red River Tour Championship and one of the races at Grayson, and then we won the July 4th deal at Texarkana.
So you just been tearing them up in that IRP. So
Yeah.
So shock and all basically got brought up with a conversation I had here with Jack Sartain, and we were talking about the price and motors and all that, and he's like, man, the motor program isn't really as hard on a driver as the shock program. So what's the deal, Jack? Talk about this shock and all issue here.
I think the shocks are out of control. I mean, I really do. And one of my real good friends and a guy that, you know, his name's on the side of the car is a shock guy, you know, Neil Kemp. And I like the...
And CRS shocks, if you ain't got some, get some. So that...
I like the hell out of the guy, but I mean, the shocks have just went astronomical over the last 8-10 years from where they used to be. You know, when me and Pat started, it was $50 Carrera shocks. You bend one, you throw it in the trash, and you go buy another one, and it wasn't no big deal, you know. And now it's, man, the price tag is basically through the roof, you know, just whatever you want to spend. I mean, you can call Bloomquist to get you a set of shocks, probably cost you 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1500s a piece if you wanted to, you know. And it's just kind of crazy how that deal took off like it did. And it affects my pocketbook, you know. And bad thing is you go to a racetrack and the cars are so competitive, the drivers are so competitive, the guys are so good. Everybody's looking for that one little bit of an advantage, and if you ain't got it, someone else does, and they're going to beat you, you know, and it's just kind of tough sometimes.
Well, and you see how big shocks are when you see Crate motors, that we're going to get into in a minute, outrun open motors, and it's about putting the power to the ground, you know. So what about you, Patrik? Of course, we got 2 open motor drivers here, Chris on the phone. What about you on this shock deal?
I agree with Jack. It's ridiculous, man. You just about have to have a shock dyno anymore. That's $7,000-8,000 to even know if your shocks are good or bad. And, you know, they want you to send them in and freshen them halfway through the year. And you're paying a guy to freshen your shocks for what you would have spent 10 years ago on buying a complete new shock. So it just like everything else, the cost of it's just completely went up and up and up. And, you know, I really feel like sometimes the series is to blame on some of that stuff, because if they would implement a rule that, hey, you can't have any rebuildable Schrader valve shocks or something to that effect, it wouldn't make a damn. If everybody's on the same shock, they're on the same shock. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, another thing that would be fun, I think, and it would help the cost of racing, is if everybody went out and bought a set of shocks off the shelf like they're supposed to. And if you don't, that's fine, don't. But when you get to the racetrack, everybody has to buy the same style of shock. And when you get there, we're just going to draw straws and just switch shocks. They're all supposed to be valved the same. They're supposed to be the same shock, so it don't make a damn. So if you want to go spend $1,000 on your shocks, go spend it, because they may end up on my race car tonight.
Wouldn't that upset a lot of shock guys, though? Chris, we'll let you dabble in this. What's your opinion on the shock game of the world right now? Obviously, you run up front, so you're well known to it as well.
Well, it's for us, of course, they're running some different stuff. We can't run the adjustable stuff, so for us, it's, I guess you could say, almost harder, because you can't have one shock per corner anymore. And the guys that are able to spend the money on it are going to spend the money on having 3 or 4 different sets per corner. That way they can make the fine tunes and adjustments, to whereas the guys that can't spend the money, they're stuck with the off the shelf stuff just because that's what they can afford. And like my stuff, I'm running, for instance, I tore up a right front a couple weeks ago, and I'm on a 4-year-old shock that needs to be rebuilt, but I just hadn't sent it in yet.
Yeah, well, what valving is that, Chris, if you don't mind me asking?
Well,
just kidding,
depends
dude.
on who you ask.
I'm just kidding. It's 4-year-old technology now, that's all right, but you still kicking everybody's ass on it, see?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's 4 years old, but I didn't say how many times it's been run.
That's right. That's right, baby.
But I mean, I go both ways just because I watch how many guys are spending the money on they'll change shocks after heat race, after features, go to different tracks, change shocks, and I've got a baseline. I run the same stuff all the time. So I try to spend the money that they're spending on shocks on tires, just because I feel like I'm getting more advantage out of that than what I'm going to sink money into on a shock. But I agree, they've gotten, I mean, you watch them spend $600 to $800 on a non-adjustable shock. That's ridiculous. I don't get it.
Totally agree. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that we're spending too damn much money on them, along with everything else, you know.
Well,
we're our worst enemy too, because we will spend it if it'll make us go faster.
For sure.
but you're saying you don't need to spend it. You're winning and you're going faster.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some AFCOs that are the $124, $125 AFCOs on my pick cart right now that I bolted on last week. They'll work. It's just, I mean, you look at the Marriotts and those guys, they're not running that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, those older shocks, they do work in certain situations. You know, when you and it helps when you walk out there and look at the racetrack and you look at it and you go, man, I know I can bolt this right front shock on and I'm going to be good in this, old choppy, hopped up racetrack. Or if you got an old shock that you just know is good, you can go out and do it. But the bad thing is, like what he referred to, he likes to spend money on tires. A lot of these guys we race against, they got the shocks and they got the tires.
And the tire.
They got it all. And that's what the killer is. It's like, man, at least if we could take one thing out of the equation and get it a little cheaper, and that would level that playing field, a lot.
Well, I think. Go ahead.
I don't know what they would do. It's like they've let it go so far. Now, how do you start taking it away?
No, I agree with you. That's the ultimate question, and that's a tough question to answer. But
if anytime they got to make a rule change that's aggressive like that, in my opinion, they're just going to come out and set a date in the future and just say, hey, it's we're halfway through 2018, the start of 2020, we're going to give you a year and a half to use up your stuff that you got, and then at this date we're going to draw a line in the sand and it's obsolete. You cannot run that anymore. But they have to give you it would be nice if they give you the opportunity to use and abuse what you've got and make that transition slowly.
Well, I think the transition is kind of a dream, isn't it? Because it ain't going to happen, is it? I mean, on a grand scale of IMCA, USMTS, USRA, you're talking about too many independent shock rebuilding builders and Penske's and all that, right?
To me, it's real simple. And this is going to sound bad, but this is the truth. You get you an IMCA magazine, you get you a USRA newsletter, you flip over to the back, and there's about 5 pages, nothing but sponsors.
Right.
Those guys are giving money to IMCA. Hey, Integra, they're not stupid. They're good, and I don't blame them. They got a good thing going, and they know how to make money. And, they call IMCA, hey, make our bulb shocks, make these bulb shocks legal, and all this stuff legal. Here you go. Here's, $10 grand. We're going to be a series sponsor. Oh, thank you. And, it's I pat my back, you pat mine, and it's tough because the racer has no leverage in that situation. What are we going to do? Call Brett Root? Man, I wish you wouldn't do that. Brett Root's going to say, well, okay, thanks.
Well,
he knows you're going to race regardless.
Well,
and that's what makes it tough.
The one thing that change would take out is kind of almost reverse of the crate. We'll dive into the crate situation here because the crate deal's kind of taking away your motor builders out there. And if you did something where you had to run from the factory style shocks, that would be taking out of the shock builders out there. So you're talking about one advantage that would help the sport, that would take away a lot of independent shock builders. And then the other change is putting in the crate motors is taking a lot of independent motor builders out. So I mean, where do you go? I mean,
my deal is there's still a couple of old boys out there that know how to assemble a decent short block and got enough junk stuff laying around from 20 years of racing, can build a motor cheap. You can't. Half of us don't know how to take a shock, stack the shims or the pistons, and then if we did, we don't have a $7,000 shock dyno to figure out if we did it right.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. I'm one of those guys. I mean, you would go to my shop. There's about 4 motors laying over there that I built. I mean, that's...
So Chris, you've obviously heard the crate speaking Everybody has. It seems like it's a good war. Jack was in a pretty good one with Chase Allen here
I'm
recently.
always in a good one about a crate.
What's your opinion on the station wagon you got over there? Apparently, hey, it's IRP. I didn't know Jason built station wagons, but apparently he does.
Yeah, you did. He's got one in his shop.
Oh yeah, he's got one. That's right. He built one for himself. You made him jealous, so he had to go get one himself.
He's got to keep up with it too, because he's gonna have customers saying, "I got this crate. What do I need to do?" And he's got to get one to go run
Before we get to Chris, you say there's a huge advantage to those crate motors.
I think there is an advantage to the crates. I really do. Just because I run the Outlaw stuff. I don't run IMCA. I chose to get out of it when they did the crate motor deal. But just like in our series, we run aluminum heads, spec motors, roller cams. We run a blade. We know how much big of a difference that stuff makes. The aluminum heads, that 50 pounds off the front of the car, that makes a difference. That gives you another aspect of tuning. The blade in IMCA, yeah, it's only 2 inches, and a lot of people say it doesn't make a difference, but it does have an effect, And those roller cams, I think that's one thing people overlook. A roller motor's pretty damn smooth, real drivable, real smooth, good power. And I think those are 3 big things.
And the 6800 deal just kind of helps it almost be a lugger traction control in a way. It hooks it up.
I don't view the 6800 thing as a bad thing.
Hooks it up.
I mean, me and Pat, we can run 7800 chips, 700 horsepower motors. I don't have one. I got a lower horsepower motor, and I don't turn 7800 every night, and there's a reason for it. A lot of times there's no need for it, I mean, just this weekend, I led the whole race at RPM. I guarantee you could have flipped my recall, and I probably didn't turn as much as a crate. Right. You don't need to, A lot of nights you don't need to do it. And that's where I think the crates, they do have an advantage, they really do, over the open motor guys. And I don't blame the guys for running them. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there running them that are doing well in them. I don't blame guys for taking advantage of it. I just don't agree with it. That's just my deal, I just don't.
All right, so we'll get back to the person who saves the houses and don't tear them down with his motor being too loud. So talk about your perspective on it there, Chris.
Well, I was against it until this year, honestly, but for several reasons. The main part that I don't like about it is you've got guys, your hand-picked few, that, I mean, the tech deal is still a big deal. I wish they'd tech them harder. Even though I have one, I wish they'd.
That seems to be Patrick's big deal, is the tech deal. They just shine a flash. What is it again? How's it go?
They just shine a flashlight, see them old bolts are sealed, and they just wave you on by.
Yeah, but here, why is there only the main logo that you see on the majority of these cars? Why are they pushing out the most crates? There's a reason to me.
Thank you.
And if
they may not be pushing them out to you anymore now after that comment.
Well, they're not anyway.
Oh, okay.
I'm not that guy. I don't. But and whether they are or aren't, nobody knows, because they're not tearing them down that far to see if there is something else going on. But that's the main part that I didn't like about it, because nobody knows. They're supposed to be the same, but to me, until somebody absolutely knows for sure that they're all the same, and you'll never know. But there's too many of them that are going that route, and there's got to be a reason.
My deal is what I said. We had a local racetrack, and it didn't make a damn who you were or what class you were in, and if it took you all year or if you did it 3 in a row. But when you won 3A features, you pull that bitch to the tech line and drain the water out of it, because you're taking a head off. We're going to check bore stroke. We're going to look at the cylinder heads, look at the intake. They did a very thorough job, and I always was appreciative of that. I had to tear my hot shit down more than I was wanting to, but it kept everybody on an equal playing field. At least if you're getting your ass kicked and they deem that guy legal, you felt a little better about it, knowing that it wasn't his motor, because they would let people get within watching distance to do it. You couldn't get in the way, obviously, but same thing, just like you're saying about that crate. If a guy wins 3 races and he ain't got nothing to hide, and that motor builder's been doing it right, pull a head off. You know what I'm saying?
And if it's legal, then pay for it.
Thank you.
Pay for the guy's gaskets and the reseal and let it go.
Exactly.
And I mean, it may cost them money at times, but it's going to make them look better in the long run, and then you're going to weed out the ones that are doing it.
Thank you.
Because there's going to be
what is the current rule for the crates? Is that all you can do? Shine a flashlight?
No, I mean, they've been making sure the valve springs, that you're not putting shims, and being able to increase the RPM. They're checking, the rev limiters and the boxes, making sure you're not doing stuff with, the chip rules. I think they've been scoping a couple of them recently, but I don't think they've been doing very much of it yet.
You can do a lot of stuff without tearing the motor down.
Yep.
You can pump them. You can check the cam. The lift on the cam, the compression.
Yeah.
You can check a lot of
Pull
stuff.
the carburetor, look down in the intake, see if there's been any work done.
Yeah.
But right now, the general consensus is they're not really doing that, though.
No,
they're just choosing the flashlight.
Not enough. Yeah.
He would know more than us. I haven't ran IMCA all year, but it seems like it's a crate.
The tech has been. On the other side of it, the tech has been easier after having one.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. But the plus side of it, if you get away from all that crap, the motor itself, oil changes are cheaper. We're running probably better oil than we have in the last couple of years. It's lasting longer. You're not torque. My open motors, we did turn them. We turned them 74, 7800 just because we twisted them tighter. But driving it's still fun to drive. You can still blow the tires off of it. But there's a lot of stuff to it that I like, but there's a lot of stuff to the open motor that I miss a lot. And the crate aspect of it makes you work on the car different than with the open motor. You have to work harder on the car because there are more cars on the same platform or on the same basis, so you have to work harder to find the mile an hour, the speed, and 0.2 of a second a lap counts more now because it's harder to make it up with this motor than it is on an open. So there's stuff to it that is cool at the same time.
Well, I want to ask you a question, because this is something that I noticed. How many times have you went to the races and watched a crate race? Watched a full field of crates race, and what do you think about it?
They sound like shit.
Exactly.
But I grew up watching modified and the late models, and it does. They don't sound cool anymore.
Yeah. Do you think that's something that draws people away from that style of racing?
Hold on, I want to know, is there not a way to change the sound of them?
Well, no, because
you ain't got no Magnaflows?
Hey,
6,800 RPM, they start floating valves. It just it won't go any more than that.
That's horrible.
But I went to the bowl and watched that Red River mod tour just because I was giving everyone hell. I figured an open motor would win the deal. And I went down there and watched, and man, that was boring. It really was. You standing on the back straightaway and them cars come by just meow, meow, and it was like, damn, man, I want to hear some screaming, some hauling ass, some on the rev limiter, some good stuff. Even if the cars may have been running faster than the open motor cars, it just seems like it's got a little more flash and flare to them people sitting up in the stands.
At the end of the day, no matter what you're talking about, whether it's racing, working, porn, it don't matter. Perception is reality. If you perceive it to be a way, that's the way it is. And if you think them cars are making more noise and going faster, then in your mind they are.
You got a point.
So are you ever going to take that crate motor and race an open modified race this year? Because there's some pretty big paying open races. The crates do well. I've seen crates. What was that one race you was talking about yesterday on the phone with me? Rodney Sanders was there or whatever.
Oh, that was the USMTS at the beginning of the year. A crate won it. It wasn't a 604, it's a 525. But Chad Melton was running fourth in the USMTS show with a 604. That's why I chose to run USRA, USMTS stuff. It seems like you can show up with an open motor like I have. You can show up with a spec motor like other guys got. You can show up with a 525 or a 604, and they have tuned their rule package to give you a certain amount of advantage, and it seems like even racing. You know, I mean, it seems like you could show up with what, you know, if you run a 604, you get a big old spoiler and a big old weight break. Seems like you can show up and do good with anything, and I respect that. I respect Todd and USRA for, hey, let's think of everybody, where IMCA seems to have went, let's just get these crate deals going because that's what's putting money in our back pocket.
Right.
Sure.
And that's the part that just kills me about
What
the
about
crate.
that part there, Chris? What's your opinion on it basically looking like corporate GM's huge involvement with IMCA? My only point to that would be if we do want to grow dirt racing, you got to get corporate in one way or another. I mean, NASCAR got big through corporate influence with Toyota and Ford and GM in there in the 90s. Now it's heavily influenced by, you know, TRD and Ford. How is that a feeling for some racers out there to know that, you know, it is kind of taking the motor builders of the world, their families and all that, out of business in a way if it does succeed tremendously?
Well, you know, they're never ever gonna be able to please everybody. It's never gonna happen. And what they're doing, there's gonna be a lot of people that disagree, and there's gonna be a lot of people that agree. And I mean, for them to get corporate involved, maybe it's a little heavier than what they could have. But if you look at IMCA modified racing in general in the last year, it's definitely picked up more than it has the last couple of years. So it in some form it's working, whether it's because of the crate or not. I mean, modified racing has been better in IMCA. Now, should they have done some different stuff with the Opens? Probably, but I mean, you have to give them some credit at the same time, because they've got a pretty good business model, and they're smart as far as their business goes. So, I mean, if I was in their shoe, would I be doing the same thing? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, we're not making the money like they are. So, and it is, who's to say that that's the exact reason too? It's hard for us to sit here and see.
Well, it is all speculation, just looks that way from the outside in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, do you think the possible solution is to getting it to where more motor builders can be certified to work on them crates? Because like you were saying earlier, just seems like only a few are selected, and those are the ones that are banking on this whole transition as well.
I think there's only 3 authorized crate rebuilders in the United States.
They should, but they would have to increase their tech and their monitoring even more than what it already is if they're going to allow.
Well, apparently
others,
that's needed. Apparently that's needed anyway.
I mean, you got a tech man that's there every night that you're paying. He needs to do his job.
Yeah, all I'm saying is maybe a solution to keeping, you know, these families alive that are tied in with motor builders. Maybe the motor builder can get certified and be able to work on these things to where it ain't just, like you said, 3 guys that are locked
Kind of like
in a
that
lot.
305 deal. You know, it's a sealed motor, but there's numerous motor builders that are able to seal the motors and authorized to seal them and do that kind of stuff. And I don't know how that worked. You almost open up a can of worms, because Mullins kind of screwed that deal up when Mullins said, we can do whatever the hell you want to with a crate. You remember that whole deal he posted? And we can put these seals right back on there, and that may have screwed that whole deal up right there.
Well, it kind of told the truth, though, right?
No, it was the
he
truth.
basically
I mean,
just exposed what people are saying behind everyone's back. And that's your point, Patrik. You know, even if one guy is doing all these motors and maybe one of them's good, there may be another guy who gave 5 or 10 more grand to put something else in there, you know?
Well, what's funny about the crate is they sell them, you know, what are they, $6,400, $6,500, Chris?
Yeah. I think it's 64 undressed and 66, 68, something like that dressed, somewhere around there.
You can go right down the road to like Crate Motor Connections and some of these other bigger crate places, and they're $10,000 and $12,000. And you sit there and you go, where'd the rest of the money come from? And they won't tell you, you know, oh, it's got a Jones setup on it. Okay, well that's $900. You know, I can see that.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's not.
But you're still missing a big amount of money.
Bolt off on it.
You know.
What was that?
I said there's not $4,000 to $6,000 bolted on it. So
yeah,
there's something else to it.
There's something else to it, and
You're
nobody will let that cat out of the bag.
Well, I mean,
you know?
and you're the one that's racing in this crate world. I'm sure it's crossing your mind more than these open motor guys about guys paying a couple more grand to get something done.
Well, and that's why we've got a bunch of good stuff coming up in the next couple months in IMCA, and I feel like, I'm probably at the best point as I've been in modified racing in a while. So, and I'm supposedly on the same platform as those guys as far as the motors, and we're going to go race with them, and we're just going to see and see how close we are, because my motor's been pretty strong.
Has that spec motor saved you a ton of money? Now, granted, it may have saved you some, but has it just been half of the cost of what an open motor would be?
Well, so Russ Fletcher was building my opens, and I've got 3 that are basically, 2 that are broke, and one of them needs to be refreshed, or valve guides, piston, or rings. And I mean, basically once a year I'm refreshing $2,500 to $3,500 to pay him to go through them and update or whatever. Oil changes they're going double the length. I mean, as far as tons of money, probably not, but the initial cost is quite a bit cheaper over what I spent on my open motors.
What does it cost to freshen a crate motor, Chris?
That's a good question. I think whenever you send it in, they'll only fix what's broke. I don't think you can just get it refreshed. I could be mistaken, but I hadn't checked into that.
Well, are they supposed to last longer as far as how many races you can get on one before needing it refreshed, though?
They were saying they were going 50 nights before you're supposed to even consider. That's what they say. Of course, we're changing valve springs every 15 to 20 nights.
Yeah, but if on the same deal, I just took a motor out of my car Saturday morning that was 4 years old, turned over 7,000 every night. What if I only turned it 6,400? How long would that thing have lasted? It may have lasted forever, So that's a big part of it, that whole 6,400 deal. I mean,
but if you were to take, at the same time though, if you take my open motor and turn it 6,400, I'm not getting a spoiler. I'm not getting to move my weight to the center of gravity. So it's like it's not the same. So yeah, I could put my open motor in and turn it 6,400, but it ain't gonna run the same.
No, I totally agree. There was that advantage we were talking about.
That's the stuff where it's not balanced across the board.
So are you saying a better solution than crate motors could have been a chip rule, save everybody money?
Yeah, but it wouldn't have made IMCA money.
Well, at least you figured it out now. You figured it out. So you got some big races coming up, like you said. I think your biggest competition that'll be in town will be old Ricky Thornton Jr. I've known that guy for 10 years now, and he's done well for himself. Is that one of the guys you're worried about coming in from out of town on some of these big shows?
Yeah, we're gonna try to make it to Boone, and then we got that Race for Hope race at Batesville in September, and then we're in that Dirt Dominator at Heart of Texas in October too. But yeah, I mean, Ricky, he's setting the world on fire in modified racing. Doesn't seem to matter what frame, what division he's in. He's pretty much, showing them the way. So
yeah, we were talking about simulation racing earlier. When I was on my A game, there was only a few guys I had to worry about, and Larson, Bell, and Ricky Thornton Jr. was one of them, and it sure transfers into real life pretty. It's at least how good somebody ends up being. Pretty respectfully, it seems like that guy's on top of IMCA racing right now.
Yeah, I look forward to racing with him. I've never raced against him. Just kind of curious to get in a car next to him and see how much better he is.
I've raced with you a bunch. You ain't no chump. You'll do good.
Yeah.
How cool was it being on that Mark Martin podcast? You didn't know that, did you, Patrik? You didn't know that.
Mark's a cool dude. He's he's one of the guys kind of like Tony Stewart, trying to give back to, us homegrown guys that are trying to make their way by themselves. And he's very, very cool. He definitely is earning a lot of respect from a lot of us people in this area, just from, just a cool guy. I don't even really know what to say about him, honestly. Just cool.
All right, any sponsors, people you want to give a shout out to here on the show?
Yeah, if you don't mind. I mean, of course, I got to say thank you to Jason. He's given me a pretty good car. Strong Ready Mix, True Form, War Shocks. Since we're on the shock stuff, Keith takes care of me as much as he can. Vintage Cactus Boutique, Copal Construction, Armor Thane of Abilene, Poston Motorsports, Tie Loop, Octane Trade School. I've actually picked up quite a few this year since I've been getting a little bit of recognition. It's been very, very nice.
So will you run any open races with that crate car at all?
You know, I've honestly been thinking about it. We've been doing a bunch of testing the last couple weeks. I haven't gone probably to any of our local races on the same stuff. Just we're focused on those bigger races coming up, trying to fine tune and get a little bit better. And you know, when we've got a pretty good chance to run for the money, we'll, you know, back down some of the guesswork, I guess you could say. But we're trying real hard to get a little bit better, and then I may look at a couple of those races at the end of the year, and if not, then maybe at the first year I'll probably try to make it to a couple of them just to see. Of course, I want to be on their tires and their spoiler. I don't want to run these tires, but I'm considering it. Of course, Waco, Lubbock they're starting to run some of the USRA stuff, and it's about, I think, 2.5 hours for me. That's the hard part for me where I'm at. I got to travel a long way, seems like, to go run some of that stuff.
Oh, you got to travel a long ways just to see a skyscraper out there in Abilene.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. We'll see.
Any questions for Chris before he gets out of here?
I want to see you bring that crate to Devil's Bowl one night.
Man, Devil's Bowl, I'm not going to say you need a big horsepower car for that place to be fun, I think. Crate racing was not fun at Devil's Bowl.
Yeah, Eric
I felt
Thompson
like I needed an extra 300 horsepower.
Eric Thompson and a couple other guys come up there a couple of weeks before that Red River Tour. That's what he told me. He was like, man, he goes, this is a bad idea.
Yeah, it's completely, I mean, short track stuff, it's okay, but that big place is just like, I don't know if it's just because of the gearing we got to run. It's like, come on, let's go.
It seemed like that was one of the slickest Devil's Bowls, from what I hear, too. It wasn't really hooked up at all, was it?
It was slicker in the hot laps than it normally is at the end of the night there.
Yeah.
And you got to think that IMCA had something to do with that. You know, I don't know if they did or not. I may just be looking into it too much, but I don't know.
It was definitely, from what I remember watching on their normal nights, it was very dirty, I guess you could say, dusty, marbly, compared to how smooth and, I mean, it wasn't multiple grooves like it looks like it normally is.
Normally, you go to the Devil's Bowl or RPM, that's one thing you can bank on is the Edwards family knows how to work a track, and you hardly ever go out there in the hot laps and go, what in the hell is this? You know, I mean, they pretty much got it down pat and got it right. And I went and watched that Devil's Bowl show, and I was watching the hot laps, and I said, man, I've never seen the bowl like this in the hot laps. So it was kind of...
The practice night, it was hammered down on the night before, but they didn't have as many cars, I don't think, as what they anticipated for the practice night, so it stayed good all night. And then the next day, I don't know if they thought, well, we're not going to get the car count, and then they just didn't put as much water on it, but I don't know what happened, but it definitely wasn't what we expected.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, we'll let you go here, and hopefully we'll see you at a racetrack here soon, sometime in the near future.
Hey, I appreciate it. Y'all have fun.
Hey, good luck, Chris.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this episode of Talking Dirty. For myself, Chaz Thompson, Patrik Daniel, and Jack Sartain, we may see you again. We'll see you next time here on Talking Dirty.